Welcome to our lesson on real estate lingo. As you get in real estate, you'll find out that it's a whole new language to learn. So many terms that you've never heard before. In this lesson, we're going to go through some of the basics to help you understand a little bit more about the language and the different terms that's used. So SFR, you're going to see that a lot, single family residence. That is actually a home that's standalone by itself. Condo, complex with separate units. Each unit is owned separately. So the owner owns the inside of the condo. They can take care of the floors. They can have, say, hardwood floors or carpet. Also, paint the walls whatever color they want to. They cannot do anything on the outside of the unit. Co-op, owned by a corporation, and each member is a shareholder, a completely different ownership. Not very popular, but you may still find it in some areas. Townhouse, multi-floor home that share one or two walls with adjacent properties with their own entrances. And a townhouse basically can be maybe just the front or maybe the back. It's attached by the front or the back. Also, a townhouse can also be a condo. So sometimes you'll see a townhouse and they also have a condo fee. So the ownership is actually condo, where they own the inside of the home and they don't have to worry about cutting the grass and taking care of the lawn. FHA, these are types of loans that we're going to go through. Federal Housing Administration, that's what FHA stands for. One of the lowest down payment loans, and it's 3.5%. Also, it's a little bit more lenient as far as credit, so your credit score doesn't have to be too high, but you can find out from each lender the details on that. VA. This loan is for veterans only. It's Veterans Administration, and it can be a no down payment loan. The veteran can pay down payment on this loan if they'd like to. It's actually the only loan that I've ever seen where the veteran can actually walk away from closing with money. Let's say they did 100% financing and they got the seller to pay all their closing costs. They did put down an earnest money deposit. They can walk away from closing with that earnest money deposit back to them. Conventional, I've seen 100% financing on conventional. I don't know if they're still out there. You may want to check with lenders. You've got a 3% down on conventional, a 5% down, 10% down, 15% down, and 20% down. If you don't put 20% down, you'll have what's called mortgage insurance. And we can actually go through that with you. There's so much to learn as far as financing. But yeah, if you don't put down 20%, if your buyer does not put down 20%, they could have mortgage insurance. They will have mortgage insurance. USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. This is also a no down payment loan, and it's only in rural areas. So you need to call the lender if you're looking in certain areas to find out if they loan in that area. It's also low income. EMD, you're going to find EMD a lot, earnest money deposit. So this is the amount of money that actually goes with the offer that shows the seller that it's good faith your buyer's putting up a good faith deposit, and it gets deposited into a non-interest bearing account. Down payment, amount needed between the loan amount and the sales price. Pretty self-explanatory. So you've got a sales price of $100,000 and a loan amount of $80,000. Then your down payment would be $20,000. Closing date. This is a date that's on the contract when the property is transferred from the seller to the buyer. Ratification, when all parties have agreed in writing. So if you have a contract and basically it's missing one set of initials, you're still not ratified. So everything has to be completely initialed off on and signed off on before it's a ratified contract. Final walkthrough, checking the home before closing. This is the buyer's last chance to actually walk through the home and make sure everything is okay before they go to closing. Appraisal. This is a lender's evaluation of the home. Okay, so the lender is going to send an appraiser out to see what the property is worth and make sure it's worth the same amount as what the buyer's paying for it. Appraisal contingency. The date the appraisal is due. There is a contingency date on your offer, on your contract, that the appraisal is due by. So the lender has to abide by that date. Backup offer. Another offer taken in case the first offer falls through. So backup offer, that is basically, let's say you have an offer on the property, it's been accepted. Second buyer comes in and says, you know what, I'd like to put a backup offer in case the first offer falls through. Inspection contingency. Again, this is actually date the inspection is due, and there's a date that you can fill in on the contract for that. The loan commitment. This is a condition of the loan, and there's also a due date that's filled in the contract as far as when the loan commitment is due. POF, proof of funds. That includes bank statements, assets, 401k, whatever it may be. That's what POF, proof of funds for the buyer. Seller concession, the same thing as closing costs, seller closing costs, the amount the seller is willing to credit the buyer at closing. Title search, address search of public records to find liens and owners. So this is basically a search of the property to find out who the legal owner is of the property. It has to match up with whomever it is that signed the contract. Closing costs. Fees that are paid at closing. Again, and this includes the lender fees, the title company's fees, appraisal, credit report, all the third-party fees. This is all closing costs. Rent back. Seller staying in the home after closing and paying the buyer rent. So let's say that the seller is not able to move out for another month after you settle. What's going to happen is we're going to do a rent back agreement, and the seller is going to pay the buyer to stay in the property for another month. And usually there's an escrow held in case there's any damages to the property while the seller is staying there. Contingency dates on the contract that are all deadlines. So contingency means there are dates on the contract that are all deadlines, certain things. Appraisal, again, going back to appraisal contingency, loan commitment contingency, home inspection contingencies. These are all dates that are deadlines on the contract. These are just some of the basic terms that you may need to know in your real estate career. There's so much more, so much more. Reach out to us if you have any questions, realestatecourse101.com. Pamela DuBois, always exceeding your expectations. See you soon.